The massive space station called Nexus hung in the void like a silver wheel spinning slowly among the stars. Ships from dozens of worlds docked at its ports every day, bringing traders, diplomats, and travelers from across the galaxy. But today, something was different. Today, the humans were coming. Captain Lee Dongwu stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the station grow larger on the screen. His vessel, the Harmony's Edge, was sleek and white, built for diplomacy rather than war. But even this peaceful ship made the aliens nervous. He could see it in the way other ships moved aside as they approached, giving them a much wider path than necessary. "Captain, we're getting the usual response," said his communications officer. "All alien vessels are requesting permission to delay their docking until we're finished." Lee Dongwu smiled slightly. It was always the same. For 50 years, humans had been part of the Galactic Coalition, but other species still acted like they carried some kind of disease. Not a real disease, of course. Something much worse in the aliens' minds. They carried the reputation of being from a death world. Earth was classified as one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. Its gravity was crushing to most species. Its weather could kill with heat, cold, storms, and floods. Its animals were predators that hunted for sport. Its plants could poison, strangle, or dissolve unwary visitors. And somehow humans had not just survived on this nightmare world. They had thrived. Ambassador Park So-young walked onto the bridge, straightening her formal robes. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but Lee Dongwu had seen those same kind eyes negotiate trade deals that left alien diplomats wondering what had just happened to them. She was possibly the most dangerous person on the ship, and she looked like someone's grandmother. "Are they clearing the docking bay again?" she asked, looking at the screen. "Standard procedure," Lee Dongwu replied. "They'll have a full security escort waiting, emergency medical teams on standby, and probably a priest or two from various religions." Commander Kim Tae-min entered the bridge, adjusting his dress uniform. He was the head of their security detail, a calm man who moved like water and spoke softly. The aliens found him particularly unsettling because he was always polite and never seemed to get angry. In their experience, the most dangerous predators were the ones that stayed calm. "The station commander wants to limit our security detail to 3 people," Kim Tae-min reported. "They're concerned about having too many humans in one place." Ambassador Park laughed. 3? Last time the Veltrans visited, they brought 40 warriors and 2 war beasts. But they're worried about 3 humans. "To be fair," Lee Dongwu said, "when was the last time you heard of Veltron warriors destroying an entire pirate fleet with just the ship's cooking knives?" "That was one incident," Kim Tae-min said modestly. "And technically, I also used a serving spoon." The docking went smoothly, as it always did. The station's crew watched nervously as the humans disembarked, but nothing dramatic happened. Lee Dongwu and his people simply walked normally, breathed normally, and spoke normally. The problem was that normal for humans was terrifying to everyone else. They moved with a fluid grace that suggested they could explode into violence at any moment. They noticed everything, their eyes constantly scanning for threats or opportunities. They spoke quietly among themselves, but their voices carried a confidence that made it clear they feared nothing on this station. The corridors cleared ahead of them as they walked. Alien families hurried their children away. Traders closed their stalls. Even the station's security guards found reasons to be somewhere else. In the Coalition Council chambers, the situation was even more tense. The room was designed to accommodate many different species with various atmosphere controls, gravity fields, and seating arrangements. The humans took their places at the central table, and immediately the room's dynamics shifted. The Veltrans, proud warriors who had conquered half their star system through sheer aggression, sat stiffly in their chairs. Their delegate, General Choi Min-ho, kept his hands away from his ceremonial weapons, as if afraid that any sudden movement might provoke the humans into action. The Lunari, ethereal beings who floated rather than walked, drifted further from the table than usual. Their high priestess, Lunara, normally glowed with soft inner light, but today that light seemed dimmed with worry. Even the Granite Clan, massive rock-like beings who feared almost nothing in the universe, seemed subdued. Their representative, a creature the size of a small building, had positioned himself as far from the humans as possible, while still technically being at the table. Ambassador Park took her seat and smiled pleasantly at everyone. "Shall we begin?" The meeting was supposed to be about trade routes and mineral rights, simple business that should have taken an hour. But the aliens kept getting distracted by the humans' presence. Every time one of the humans moved, even just to reach for a water glass, the entire room tensed. General Choi Min-ho finally made a mistake. Perhaps trying to reassure himself, or maybe attempting to gain some psychological advantage. He made a comment about human military capabilities. "Of course, we understand that humans are clever," he said, his voice betraying his nervousness despite his attempts to sound confident. "Your species has done well for primitives from a dangerous world. But when it comes to real military might, well," he gestured at his ceremonial weapons. "The Veltrons have been warriors for 10,000 years. Humans are merely clever savages with primitive weapons." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Commander Kim Tae-min looked up from his tablet, where he had been quietly taking notes. He smiled at General Choi Min-ho, and that smile was somehow more frightening than any snarl. "Primitive weapons," Kim Tae-min repeated softly. "How interesting." He said nothing else, just returned to his notes. But his smile lingered, and everyone in the room suddenly felt like they were being watched by something that was deciding whether or not they were worth the effort to kill. The meeting continued, but the atmosphere had changed. The aliens negotiated more carefully, spoke more quietly, and avoided making eye contact with the humans. Ambassador Park got everything she wanted from the trade agreement, and the aliens seemed grateful to give it to her. As the session was ending, an alarm began to sound throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed and a voice echoed through the corridors in multiple languages. "All personnel to emergency stations. Unknown fleet detected approaching the system. Repeat, unknown fleet approaching. This is not a drill." Admiral Yang Hyun-soo, the station's defense coordinator, rushed into the chamber with a look of panic on his face. "Forgive the interruption, but we have a serious problem. Our sensors have detected a Devourer fleet at the edge of the system. They're heading straight for us." The reaction was immediate. Several alien delegates began making calls to arrange evacuation. Others started praying. The Granite Clan representative actually groaned, a sound like boulders grinding together. Everyone knew about the Devourers. They were the nightmare species that consumed everything in their path. Entire civilizations had been wiped out by their fleets. No one had ever successfully repelled a full Devourer assault. "How long do we have?" Ambassador Park asked calmly. "At their current speed, maybe 18 hours, Admiral Yang replied. "I'm ordering all non-essential personnel to evacuate immediately." "That seems premature," Lee Dongwoo said. "Perhaps Earth can assist." The aliens stared at him. General Choi Min-ho laughed bitterly. "No offense, Captain, but this isn't a trade dispute. This is the Devourers. They've destroyed species far more powerful than humans." Lee Dongwoo smiled the same smile that Commander Kim had used earlier. "General, you've never actually seen humans at war, have you?" Panic spread through Nexus Station like a virus. The news that a Devourer fleet was coming had turned the busy spaceport into chaos. Alien families ran through the corridors, trying to find transport off the station. Traders abandoned their goods and rushed to their ships. Even the station's security forces looked ready to flee. Admiral Yang Hyun-soo stood in the command center, staring at the tactical display with growing horror. The Devourer fleet was massive, at least 60 ships of various sizes, all bristling with weapons designed to tear apart space stations and devour the inhabitants. The coalition forces available to defend Nexus Station were pathetically small in comparison. "Sir, we have 12 frigates, 6 destroyers, and 2 cruisers," reported his tactical officer. "The Veltron delegation has offered their ceremonial warship, and the Granite Clan says they'll fight to the end." "That's barely 20 ships against 60 Devourers," Yang muttered. "It's not even a battle, it's a massacre." General Choi Min-ho entered the command center, his warrior's pride warring with practical reality. "Admiral, my ship and crew are at your disposal. We may not be able to win, but we'll make them pay for every life they take." High Priestess Lunara floated nearby, her inner light flickering with distress. "My people's ships are not built for war, but we have powerful shields. We can help protect the evacuation vessels." In the midst of all this desperate planning, Ambassador Park So-young approached Admiral Yang with the same calm expression she had worn during the trade negotiations. "Admiral, I believe Earth may be able to provide assistance." Yang looked at her with barely concealed frustration. "Ambassador, with all due respect, this isn't a diplomatic problem. The Devourers don't negotiate. They consume. Unless Earth has a fleet hiding somewhere nearby, I don't see how you can help." "Actually," Captain Lee Dongwoo said, joining the conversation, "Earth does have assets in the area." "Assets?" General Choi Min-ho scoffed. Captain, the nearest human fleet is 3 days away at maximum coalition speeds. We'll all be dead and digested long before they arrive. Lee Dong-woo smiled that unsettling smile again. General, human ships don't follow coalition speed limits. He activated his communicator and sent a coded message that the aliens couldn't understand. The transmission was brief, just a few words, but something about the way Lee Dong-woo's expression changed when he sent it made everyone in the room pay attention. What did you just do? Admiral Yang asked. I requested immediate deployment of Special Asset Omega, Lee Dong-woo replied. The aliens looked confused. They had never heard of Special Asset Omega, and it wasn't listed in any coalition military database they had access to. Ambassador Park seemed to know what it meant, though, because she nodded approvingly. How long? She asked. 18 hours, maybe less, Lee Dong-woo answered. General Choi Min-ho shook his head. Captain, I don't think you understand the situation. Even if Earth had a dreadnought fleet 3 star systems away, they couldn't get here in 18 hours. The laws of physics don't work that way. Human engineering is very good at working around inconvenient laws, Commander Kim Tae-min said quietly. The next few hours were tense. Evacuation ships launched from the station in waves carrying civilians to safety. The remaining coalition forces prepared for what everyone assumed would be a hopeless last stand. The Devourer fleet continued its approach, and their intentions became clearer as they got closer. These weren't raiders looking for easy prey. This was a full harvest fleet, the kind that stripped entire star systems clean of life. The ships were massive biomechanical horrors that looked like they had been grown rather than built. Their hulls pulsed with organic rhythms, and their weapons were designed to keep prey alive while they fed. Admiral Yang was in the middle of coordinating the defense when his sensor officer called out in surprise. Sir, we have a new contact. Single ship dropping out of hyperspace. Friendly or hostile? Yang asked, expecting the worst. Unknown, sir. It's human. Everyone in the command center turned to look at the tactical display. A single ship had indeed appeared, but it was unlike any human vessel they had seen before. Coalition records showed human ships as functional but unremarkable, built for efficiency rather than intimidation. This ship was different. It was smaller than a standard frigate, sleek and black as space itself. It moved with a predatory grace that reminded everyone watching of a hunting cat. The ship's design was so aggressive that it looked dangerous even when it was just sitting still. Ship designation coming through now, sir, the sensor officer reported. She's called the Silent Thunder. The name sent a chill through the command center. Even the aliens, who didn't understand human naming conventions, could tell that this was not a diplomatic vessel. General Choi Min-ho stared at the display in confusion. One ship. That's Earth's response to a Devourer fleet? One small frigate? Actually, Lee Dong-woo corrected, that's not a frigate. Then what is it? Lee Dong-woo was quiet for a moment, as if considering how much to reveal. It's what humans build when we need to solve problems that can't be solved with diplomacy. The Silent Thunder began moving toward the Devourer fleet, and something remarkable happened. The Devourers, who had been advancing in perfect formation with the confidence of apex predators, suddenly stopped. Their formation shifted, becoming defensive rather than aggressive. That's impossible, Admiral Yang whispered. Devourers don't retreat. They don't even slow down. What could make them? He trailed off as the implications hit him. The Devourers, the most feared predators in the galaxy, had recognized something more dangerous than themselves. They had seen the Silent Thunder and decided to be careful. High Priestess Lunara, whose empathic abilities let her sense the emotions of other beings across vast distances, suddenly gasped. There's something on that ship. Something that, she struggled to find words, something that feels like death itself. The communication channels crackled to life as the Silent Thunder hailed Nexus Station. Nexus Control. This is Colonel Kang Ji-won of the Earth Defense Force. We are responding to your distress call. The voice was calm, professional, and female. It sounded like someone calling to report the weather. But somehow that casual tone made it even more frightening. Admiral Yang activated the comm system with shaking hands. Colonel, this is Admiral Yang. We're facing a full Devourer harvest fleet. 60 ships, all hostile. Do you require support? There was a pause, and when Colonel Kang replied, there was what might have been amusement in her voice. Negative, Admiral. We've got this. Please keep all coalition vessels clear of the engagement zone. We wouldn't want any accidents. General Choi Min-ho couldn't contain himself any longer. Colonel, with respect, you have one small ship against 60 Devourer vessels. This isn't bravery, it's suicide. Another pause. Then Colonel Kang's voice came back, and this time there was definitely amusement in it. General, you're making the same mistake everyone makes about humans. You think this is one ship with one crew? Isn't it? Admiral Yang asked. No, Colonel Kang replied. This is one ship with 4 humans. And we're not here to fight the Devourers. The command center fell silent. If they weren't here to fight, then what were they planning to do? Then what? Yang began. We're here to explain to them why attacking human allies is a bad idea. Colonel Kang interrupted. The explanation may involve some practical demonstrations. The Silent Thunder continued toward the Devourer fleet, which was now clearly in full defensive formation. Whatever the Devourers sensed about this single human ship had made them abandon their attack plans and prepare to defend themselves. For the first time since the crisis began, Admiral Yang felt something that wasn't despair. He didn't understand what was happening, but he could see that the situation had changed completely. The Devourers were afraid. And if the Devourers were afraid of 4 humans in one small ship, then maybe the galaxy had been wrong about what humans were truly capable of. The Silent Thunder docked with Nexus Station with movement so smooth, they seemed almost unnatural. The ship connected to the station's airlocks without even the smallest bump, as if it had done this maneuver 1,000 times before. In the command center, everyone watched the docking display with growing tension. 4 humans, Admiral Yang muttered to himself. 4 humans against 60 Devourers. Sir, they're requesting permission to come aboard, the communications officer reported. Granted, Yang replied. Though his voice showed he wasn't sure this was a good idea, the wait seemed to last forever. Then the command center doors opened and 4 figures walked in. The aliens who had been afraid of regular humans suddenly understood that they had never actually encountered anything truly dangerous from Earth. Colonel Kang Ji-wan entered first. She was a woman of average height, with short black hair and calm eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She moved with a fluid grace that made everyone in the room instinctively step back. When she smiled politely at Admiral Yang, several alien officers actually flinched. Behind her came Major Lim Da-eun, a woman who looked like she could calculate the exact trajectory needed to kill everyone in the room while making polite conversation. She carried a tablet and immediately began studying the tactical displays with an intensity that made the station's best military analysts feel inadequate. Sergeant Nam Woo-jin followed, a man who seemed to be casually examining the room's structure and contents, but in a way that suggested he was cataloging every possible weapon and explosive device that could be improvised from the available materials. He smiled cheerfully at everyone, which somehow made him more frightening than if he had been scowling. Finally, Corporal Han Yuri entered, a young woman who had somehow scanned the room's security systems, identified every person present and checked their background files, all while walking from the door to the center of the room. She nodded politely to the assembled officers, having already read their service records. Admiral Yang, Colonel Kang said, offering a slight bow. Thank you for allowing us aboard. I understand you have a devourer problem. Yang nodded, still staring at the 4 humans. Up close, they were even more unsettling than at a distance. They moved like predators, but predators who had evolved far beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Every gesture was precise. Every glance was calculated, and their presence seemed to make the air itself feel dangerous. Colonel, I have to ask, Yang began carefully. What exactly is your plan? The Devourer fleet has 60 ships, all heavily armed. Even if your vessel has advanced weapons... Oh, we're not planning to fight them ship to ship, Major Lim interrupted, looking up from her tactical analysis. That would take too long. Then how? General Choi Min-ho started to ask. We're going to board their command ship, Colonel Kang explained matter-of-factly. The room fell silent. Then several aliens began talking at once, all trying to explain why this was impossible. Devourers killed any boarding parties instantly. Their ships were biological nightmares that dissolved intruders. No one had ever successfully boarded a Devourer vessel and lived to tell about it. Colonel Kang listened politely to all the objections, then raised her hand for silence. Thank you for the warnings. However, there are a few things you should understand about Earth's military doctrine. She nodded to Major Lim, who activated a holographic display that showed the Devourer fleet formation. The display was far more detailed than anything the station's sensors had produced, showing not just ship positions but internal structures, weapon placements, and even crew distributions. First, Colonel Kang continued, we don't fight fair. Fair fights are for sports, not for survival. Major Lim began highlighting weak points in the Devourer formation, tactical errors in their positioning, and vulnerabilities in their ship designs. Her analysis was so thorough and accurate that the aliens realized she understood the enemy better than they understood themselves. Second, Colonel Kang said, we don't fight to win. We fight to end the threat permanently. Sergeant Nam pulled out a small device that looked harmless but made every alien in the room instinctively back away from it. This is a quantum disruptor, he explained cheerfully. It makes their bioships forget how to maintain cellular cohesion. Very effective, but it does violate several galactic warfare conventions. Why does it violate conventions? Admiral Yang asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Because it works too well, Nam replied. Most species consider it unsporting to develop weapons that are this efficient. Third, Colonel Kang continued, we've been preparing for this particular enemy for quite some time. Corporal Han touched a wall panel, and suddenly, the station security system began displaying information that should have been classified. Ship movements, communication intercepts, tactical analyses of Devourer behavior patterns. She had accessed everything in seconds. We've been tracking Devourer fleets for 20 years, Han explained. We know their tactics, their biology, their psychology. They're very good at consuming helpless civilizations. They're not prepared for prey that fights back intelligently. High Priestess Lunara, whose empathic abilities had been overwhelmed since the humans arrived, finally found her voice. I can sense your emotions, she whispered. You're not afraid. You're excited. Colonel Kang smiled, and this time the smile wasn't polite or diplomatic. It was the smile of someone who had found a worthy challenge. Priestess, my team hasn't had a proper assignment in months. We've been doing training exercises and diplomatic escort missions. This is the first time in quite a while that we get to do what we were designed for. What were you designed for? Admiral Yang asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know. We are Earth's diplomatic solution to communication breakdowns, Major Lim replied, still studying the tactical displays. When regular diplomacy fails and when standard military responses are insufficient, Earth sends us to explain the situation more clearly. How do you explain things? General Choi Min-ho asked. Through practical demonstrations, Sergeant Nam said, still examining his equipment. We show them what happens to species that threaten human allies. The aliens were beginning to understand that what they had feared about humans was just the beginning. Regular human soldiers, the ones they had encountered before, were apparently the equivalent of civilian police officers. These four represented something entirely different. Colonel, Admiral Yang said carefully, when you say you're going to board their command ship, you do realize that's considered a suicide mission? Only if you plan on coming back, Colonel Kang replied calmly. The room fell silent again. Then Corporal Han spoke up. Actually, we do plan on coming back. We just don't let that limit our tactical options. What she means, Major Lim explained, is that we plan for success, not survival. If we happen to survive the successful completion of our mission, that's a bonus. General Choi Min-ho stared at them in amazement. You're talking about attacking the most feared predators in the galaxy, and you're treating it like a training exercise. General, Colonel Kang said, you keep forgetting something important. Humans are from a death world. We evolved alongside predators that were actively trying to kill us for millions of years. The Devourers may be the most feared predators in the galaxy, but they're not the most feared predators on Earth. What's the most feared predator on Earth? Admiral Yang asked. The four humans looked at each other and smiled. It was Sergeant Nam who answered. Humans who've been properly motivated. Colonel Kang checked her equipment one final time. Admiral, we'll need you to keep all coalition ships at least 50 kilometers from the engagement zone. We're going to use some techniques that might be energetic. What kind of techniques? Yang asked. The kind that work, Major Lim replied, closing her tactical display. The kind that make sure Devourers never threaten this region of space again. As the four humans prepared to leave the command center, High Priestess Lunara called out to them. Wait, I have to ask, are all human soldiers like you? Colonel Kang paused at the door. Oh no, Priestess. We're specialists. Most human soldiers are much more conventional. Then what makes you different? Colonel Kang smiled one last time before leaving. Most human soldiers fight to protect Earth. We fight to protect Earth's friends. The door closed behind them, leaving the alien officers staring at each other in stunned silence. They were beginning to realize that the galaxy's understanding of human military capability was about to change forever. The attack began without warning, and immediately the aliens watching from Nexus Station realized that everything they thought they knew about warfare was wrong. Major Lim Da-un remained on the station, coordinating the assault from the command center. She had taken over the tactical displays and was directing the Coalition's remaining ships with a precision that left their commanders speechless. Ships that had been preparing for a desperate last stand found themselves moving in formations they didn't understand, executing maneuvers that seemed impossible. Veltran cruiser, adjust heading by 15 degrees and prepare for synchronized fire, Lim commanded. Granite Clan heavy fighter, you're going to punch a hole in their left flank at exactly 14 minutes 30 seconds from my mark. How can you be so precise? General Choi Min-ho asked, watching his own ship respond to her commands with an efficiency his crew had never achieved. Because I know exactly what they're going to do, Lim replied, manipulating the display to show predicted devourer movements. They're following a standard harvest formation. Very effective against panicked civilians, but it has 17 major tactical weaknesses. Admiral Yang stared at the display in amazement. You've fought devourers before? No, Lim said casually. But we've studied them. Humans study all potential threats. We've been analyzing devourer tactics for decades, waiting for an opportunity to test our theories. Theories? High Priestess Lunara whispered. About how to kill them efficiently, Lim explained, as if discussing the weather. Meanwhile, the Silent Thunder was moving toward the devourer fleet in a way that defied physics as the aliens understood it. The ship seemed to skip through space, appearing and disappearing in flashes of impossible speed. Devourer weapons fired at empty space while the human vessel materialized behind their formations. Sergeant Nam Woo-jin's voice crackled over the communication system. Testing party favor number 1. All Coalition ships, please observe the fireworks. A small object detached from the Silent Thunder and drifted toward the nearest Devourer vessel. It looked harmless, like a piece of space debris. When it touched the Devourer ship's hull, the entire vessel simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not exploded. It just ceased to be, as if someone had erased it from reality. What was that? Admiral Yang gasped. Quantum disruptor, Major Lim replied, still coordinating ship movements. It convinces matter that it doesn't want to be matter anymore. Very clean, very efficient. Is that even legal? General Choi Min-ho asked. Legal where? Lim responded. Galactic warfare conventions assume that participants want to eventually stop fighting. Humans prefer permanent solutions. 3 more Devourer ships simply vanished as Nam deployed additional devices. The remaining Devourers began to retreat from the Silent Thunder, but their formations became even more vulnerable to the coordinated attacks Lim was directing. Lunari support vessel, your shields are needed at coordinate 77 Mark IV, Lim commanded. Coalition frigate group, converging fire on the damaged cruiser. Wait for my signal. The alien commanders found themselves executing a battle plan so sophisticated that they could only understand their own small part of it, but they could see the results. Devourer ships that had seemed invincible were being systematically destroyed by forces that should have been hopelessly outmatched. How is this possible? Admiral Yang asked. Because you've been thinking about this wrong, Lim explained, highlighting another section of the battle. You see 60 Devourer ships attacking 20 Coalition vessels, and you assume the numbers matter. But warfare isn't about numbers. It's about intelligence, planning, and superior technology applied with precision. But they have more ships. Bigger weapons. Admiral, Lim interrupted. Do you know how many predators live on Earth? No, why? Millions of species all trying to kill each other and anything else they encounter. Humans didn't become the dominant species on Earth by having bigger claws or sharper teeth. We became dominant by being smarter, more adaptable, and more ruthless than anything else that wanted to survive. On the tactical display, the Silent Thunder had penetrated deep into the Devourer formation. Colonel Kang Ji-won and Corporal Han Yuri had somehow managed to board the enemy command ship while it was still moving and fighting. How did they get aboard? General Choi Min-ho asked, staring at the impossible tactical situation. Trade secret, Lim replied with a slight smile. Let's just say that human infiltration techniques have improved significantly since we joined the coalition. Inside the Devourer command ship, Colonel Kang was methodically hunting the crew through their own vessel. The bioship's corridors, designed to trap and consume intruders, seemed to have no effect on her. She moved through the organic passages like a ghost, eliminating Devourer warriors before they realized they were being hunted. Corporal Han had taken control of the ship's biological systems, somehow convincing the vessel's own nervous system to work against its crew. Devourer soldiers found themselves trapped in corridors that had suddenly decided to close, or walking into chambers that had become unexpectedly hostile to their presence. "This is impossible," one of the alien observers whispered. "Devourer bioships are supposed to be impenetrable. Only if you try to fight them the way they expect," Major Lim explained. "Humans don't fight fair. We fight to win." The command ship's biological defenses, which had never encountered anything like human tactical thinking, began to fail systematically. Colonel Kang reached the bridge where the Devourer Alpha waited with its personal guard. The aliens watching from Nexus Station couldn't see the details of what happened next, but they could observe the results. The Devourer command ship's coordination signals suddenly stopped. The entire fleet began to move randomly, no longer operating as a unified force. "The Alpha is dead," Major Lim announced calmly. "Colonel Kang has eliminated their command structure." "How can you tell?" Admiral Yang asked. "Because the other ships are starting to panic," Lim replied, pointing to the tactical display. Devourers are hive-minded when they have strong leadership. Without their alpha, they revert to individual survival instincts. This was when the true slaughter began. The Devourer ships, no longer coordinated, became easy targets for the coalition forces that Lim was directing. But more importantly, they became vulnerable to the Silent Thunder's systematic elimination campaign. Sergeant Nam's quantum disruptors began working through the enemy fleet with methodical efficiency. Each weapon was precisely targeted to create maximum psychological impact on the surviving Devourers. Ships didn't just die. They died in ways that made it clear to the remaining crews exactly how outmatched they were. "They're trying to retreat," General Choi Min-ho observed, watching several Devourer vessels attempting to flee the battle. "No," Major Lim said firmly. She activated the communication system. "Colonel, the enemy is attempting to withdraw." Colonel Kang's voice came back over the comm, calm and professional despite the fact that she was presumably fighting for her life aboard an enemy vessel. "Negative. Devourers don't get to retreat." "Not anymore. What does she mean?" Admiral Yang asked. "She means," Major Lim explained, "that this is the last Devourer fleet that will threaten coalition space. Ever." The Silent Thunder began pursuing the fleeing Devourer ships with relentless efficiency. None of them escaped. Each vessel was hunted down and eliminated with the same cold precision that had characterized the entire battle. When the last Devourer ship was destroyed, an eerie silence fell over the tactical display. Where there had been 60 enemy vessels, there was now only empty space and debris. Colonel Kang's voice crackled over the comm one final time. "Nexus Control, this is Colonel Kang. Problem solved. Requesting permission to dock." Admiral Yang stared at the empty tactical display, trying to process what he had just witnessed. "Colonel, what about casualties? Do you need medical assistance?" "Negative, Admiral. No human casualties. We're fine. What about the Devourer command ship? You were fighting aboard it when it exploded." There was a pause, and when Colonel Kang replied, there was what might have been amusement in her voice. "Admiral, who said anything about the ship exploding?" "We needed to make sure our exit was properly timed." General Choi Min-ho looked at the tactical display in amazement. "You mean you planned the destruction of their command ship down to the second?" "General," Colonel Kang replied, "we planned this entire engagement down to the second. The only variable was how long it would take the Devourers to realize they had made a mistake." As the Silent Thunder returned to Nexus Station, the alien observers began to understand that they hadn't just witnessed a military victory. They had witnessed the birth of a new understanding of what humans were capable of when they decided to solve a problem permanently. The silence in Nexus Station's command center was broken only by the soft hum of machinery, and the occasional nervous shift of alien officers trying to process what they had just witnessed. The tactical display showed empty space where the Devourer fleet had been, with only scattered debris to prove the battle had actually happened. Admiral Yang Hyun-soo stared at the screen, then at Major Lim Da-eun, who was calmly shutting down her tactical displays as if she had just finished a routine training exercise. "Major," Yang said carefully, "that was a devourer harvest fleet. 60 ships. They've destroyed entire civilizations." "Yes," Lim replied, packing up her equipment. "They were very aggressive. Poor tactical planning, though. They relied too heavily on their reputation." General Choi Min-ho was still staring at the empty tactical display. "In 20 minutes, you eliminated a threat that has terrorized the galaxy for centuries." 18 minutes, 37 seconds, Lim corrected. "We had planned for 25 minutes, but they were less adaptable than our projections suggested." High Priestess Lunara floated closer, her empathic abilities still reeling from what she had sensed during the battle. "Major, I could feel their fear. The Devourers were terrified. I've never sensed anything like it. What could make the galaxy's most feared predators feel such terror?" Lim paused in her packing and looked at the priestess with something that might have been sympathy. "Priestess, imagine you're a wolf and you've spent your entire life hunting sheep. Then one day you encounter something that hunts wolves. The terror comes from realizing that you're not at the top of the food chain after all." The silent thunder docked with the same smooth precision it had shown before, and the 4 humans returned to the command center. They looked exactly the same as when they had left, with no signs of having just fought one of the most dangerous battles in galactic history. Colonel Kang Ji-won nodded politely to Admiral Yang. "Admiral, Nexus Station is secure. The Devourer threat in this sector has been permanently resolved." "Permanently?" Yang asked. "You mean they won't come back?" "They can't come back," Sergeant Nam Woo-jin said cheerfully. "That was their entire harvest fleet for this region. It will take them several decades to rebuild, and by then word will have spread about what happens when they threaten human allies." Corporal Han Yuri was studying a tablet, reviewing data from the battle. "We also recovered their navigation databases. We now know the location of their breeding worlds, supply bases, and remaining fleet positions. The implications of this hit Admiral Yang like a physical blow." "You mean you could eliminate them entirely if necessary," Colonel Kang confirmed. "But that would be a political decision, not a military one. For now, they'll spread the word that attacking coalition space is inadvisable." General Choi Min-ho approached Colonel Kang with something approaching reverence. "Colonel, I owe you an apology. Earlier, I suggested that humans were primitive warriors with inadequate weapons." "No apology necessary, General," Kang replied. "You had no way of knowing. Most species encounter humans during peacetime diplomatic missions. You've never seen us during working hours." "Working hours?" Admiral Yang repeated. "This was a routine threat elimination," Major Lim explained. "Standard protocol for dealing with aggressive species that threaten coalition members." The aliens exchanged glances, each trying to process the implications. If this was routine for humans, what did that say about their true military capabilities? Captain Lee Dong-woo entered the command center, having monitored the entire battle from his ship. "Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we can now resume our trade negotiations." Ambassador Park So-young smiled pleasantly at the assembled alien delegates. "Shall we return to the conference room? I believe we were discussing mineral rights and shipping routes." The mood in the conference room was dramatically different from what it had been before the Devourer attack. The alien delegates who had been nervously negotiating with humans now understood that they had been incredibly fortunate that humans preferred diplomacy. "Ambassador," General Choi Min-ho said, his voice showing new respect. "Regarding those trade agreement—" "Yes?" Park replied pleasantly. "I think we can be much more flexible on the terms." High Priestess Lunara approached Captain Lee with a question that had been haunting her since the battle. "Captain, how many more like them do you have?" Lee considered the question carefully. "Priestess, that was one team from one unit. Earth maintains several such units." "Several?" Admiral Yang asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We have different specialists for different types of problems," Commander Kim Taemin explained. "The Shadow Brigade specializes in rapid threat elimination. Other units handle different challenges." "What kind of other challenges?" General Choi Min-ho asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "Planetary liberation, strategic infiltration, precision strikes against hardened targets," Kim listed casually. "Whatever the situation requires." The alien delegates sat in stunned silence as they realized the full scope of what they had learned. The humans they had feared for 50 years were the diplomatic corps, the traitors, the civilian representatives. The actual military forces of Earth were something entirely different. "Colonel Kang," Admiral Yang said, "may I ask what your normal assignments are like?" "Usually much quieter," Kang replied. "We spend most of our time training, running simulations, and hoping we won't be needed." Today was actually quite refreshing. "Refreshing?" General Choi Min-ho repeated weakly. "We haven't had a proper field exercise in months," Sergeant Nam explained. "It's good to keep our skills sharp." Ambassador Park stood up, signaling that the diplomatic meetings could resume. "Gentlemen, ladies, I believe this incident has clarified some things about Earth's position in the coalition. Perhaps we can now proceed with our discussions in a spirit of mutual understanding." The trade negotiations that followed were the smoothest in coalition history. Every proposal Earth made was accepted immediately. Every concern Earth raised was addressed without question. The alien delegates seemed genuinely grateful for the opportunity to accommodate human interests. As the Shadow Brigade prepared to depart, High Priestess Lunara made one final attempt to understand what she had witnessed. "Colonel, may I ask you something personal?" "Of course, Priestess. Are you proud of what you do?" Colonel Kang considered the question seriously. "Priestess, we're proud that we can protect Earth's friends. We're proud that diplomats like Ambassador Park can negotiate in safety. We're proud that traitors like Captain Lee can travel the galaxy without fear. But doesn't it trouble you that other species are afraid of you?" "Fear can be useful," Kang replied. "But we prefer respect. Fear makes people unpredictable. Respect makes them reasonable." "And if they choose neither fear nor respect?" Colonel Kang smiled, and for the first time, it was a warm, genuine expression, rather than the polite diplomatic smile the aliens had seen before. "Then they get a practical demonstration of why both options are preferable to the alternative." As the Silent Thunder departed from Nexus Station, word of the battle began spreading throughout Coalition space. The message was simple but profound. Humans had been holding back for 50 years, and the galaxy had just seen a glimpse of what Earth was truly capable of when properly motivated. On dozens of worlds, military commanders and political leaders reached the same conclusion. The species they had cautiously respected was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The humans who served as diplomats, traitors, and standard military personnel were apparently just the ones Earth felt safe letting the rest of the galaxy meet. Admiral Yang stood in his command center, watching the Silent Thunder disappear into hyperspace. "Major Lim," he said to the empty room, "what have we been sharing the galaxy with all these years?" But Major Lim was gone, returned to her ship, leaving only the memory of her calm efficiency and the knowledge that Earth had many more units like the Shadow. Brigade Ambassador Park's final words to the Coalition Council echoed through diplomatic channels across the galaxy. "Humanity has always preferred diplomacy, but it's good that you now understand why our diplomacy is so effective. We're very good at explaining the alternatives." The galaxy had already feared humans. Now they understood that their fear had been based on incomplete information. The humans they had encountered were the ones Earth sent when they wanted to be friendly. The Shadow Brigade represented what Earth sent when friendship wasn't enough.